that summer, it was 2 months after Magic and Bird met that epic struggle. They were about ready to go on and remake the NBA. I was just out of 8th grade, about ready to start high school in a new town. Didn't know anyone yet, but I was determined that I was going to be on the basketball team. I didn't know that I didn't have any talent playing basketball. So I was going to be on the basketball team. So I found the coach of the high school basketball team in my new school. Didn't know anyone, and I walked up. I don't remember the exact conversation. I just remember finding out from the coach. He recommended, well, Tom, if you want to be on the basketball team, you got to be in good shape. What you need to do is you need to go out for cross country. Okay. So I went out for cross country. I showed up for the first day of practice. Cross country was a fall sport, so first day of practice was just probably the first week into school, first couple weeks into school. I showed up to practice for that first practice, and I should have known something was wrong right then and there because 9th through 12th grade, the entire high school, guess how many kids showed up for the first day of practice cross country? 7. 7. And that was both fresh, soft, and varsity. So I was immediately promoted to the varsity squad. And I'd never run cross country before. It turned out in Illinois back in those days it was a 3-mile race. Probably nowadays, I don't know what else they're going to do. It was a cross country team. They probably do a 5K, is my guess. They had a 3-mile race back in Illinois in those days. So I wanted to be on the basketball team. That's the only reason I'm in cross country. And if I'd have been even a little smarter than I wasn't very smart at all. If I just had a little extra smart, I'd have looked around at the cross country team. None of them were good basketball players. So I don't know why the coach got off telling me to go out for cross country to get ready for basketball. But there it was. I wanted to be on the basketball team, so I showed up and I ran cross country. But but the only thing we ever did in practice, can you guess? What did we do in practice? We ran. And I got real tired real fast, real bored really fast. But this was a rural town, population of about 1,000, and the high school was on the outskirts of town, really always literally surrounded by corn and bean fields. And the coach was a little grizzled old veteran of coaching, Coach Dirkholz. I kind of had a love-hate relationship with Coach Dirkholz. And he would point down one of those country roads that started right at, kind of where the school yard ended. There's the country road. He'd say, okay, guys, I want you to run down that road, run down yonder, past the Johnson Oak tree, like I know where the Johnson Oak tree is, and then turn around and come back. So I do. We're running down there. Now, the 7 guys on the team, I'm the slowest, of course. I never run any more than maybe 2 laps around the track when I was in junior high. And so I get down halfway down this country road, and I'm exhausted. I'm in last place. I don't really know where I am. The coach would come by, and this was the encouragement that he would give, Coach Dirkholz. He had a beautiful automobile. It was a 1969 Chevy Camaro Black. I wanted that car. It was a great car. But he ruined the whole thing. He'd drive by in his car. He wasn't running, by the way. He'd drive by in his car. And he'd roll down the window when he came by me, be like, "Is that all you got, Brosnick?" And then he'd speed on up to find the stars of the team were like, by that time, about a mile ahead of me. And he was old school. So this thing about proper hydration when you're running, forget that. There was no water. He didn't have any water bottles in his car. This was dry. It was a dry season. So that was kind of my experience with cross country. And I ran cross country both my freshman and sophomore years in high school. That was kind of my introduction to endurance athletics, or running. And by the way, I did have one way to get back to Coach Dirkholz. We'd get to a meet, and we had dual meets where we'd run against 2 or 3 other schools. Then we'd have big invitationals. There'd be like 100 high school runners in these invitationals. And I guess my only claim to fame on the high school cross-country team is I never came in dead last. Like if there were 14 runners, it was a 2-school dual meet, so 7 runners on each team. 14 runners, never came in 14th. Now, I think I came in 12th or 13th quite a few times, but never came in last. And then the big invitationals, there'd be 100, 120 runners, lots of runners. And I'd never come in dead last, didn't come in 101st or whatever it was. I'd come in around 75th or 80th, so I was not a star on the track team. But I did have this little passive-aggressive way of getting back at Coach Dirkholz. Is we'd get to the meets, and I didn't really know how to pace myself, so 3 miles is a long way. It certainly felt like a long way to me, so I would kind of pace myself. I wanted some little steam to get to the finish line, but I had this, what to him was a bad habit. I'm really more of a sprinter, at least I was in high school. I was a sprinter, so I really always had a lot of extra steam at the end of the race. So if there were 2 or 3 guys just ahead of me, then I'd just pour on the steam. I would just rip through the finish line like I was fresh, like I was running a 100-meter dash. And it just rubbed him the wrong way. He'd like yell and scream at me afterwards to be like, Osnick, if you have that much energy in the last 100 yards of the race, you're not trying hard enough for the whole distance. What's wrong here? So he'd yell at me, and then he'd kind of try to reason with me in a sober fashion, but it never worked. That was kind of labyrinth and repeat. That was my high school cross-country experience. And oh, by the way, did I make the basketball team? Well, I guess I made it because I didn't have any cuts. There were no cuts. So I was one of 30 young men on the basketball team. You know how many guys are on the floor at one time, right? Guess how many splinters I got riding the bench when I was on the basketball team. Matter of fact, I got so many splinters that by the time my junior year came around, I said, this sports thing, forget this. I didn't go for cross country or basketball. That was it. So that was my cross country experience, and it was supposed to be a win-win. You've heard about win-win. For me, it was a lose-lose because I almost hated every minute of it. It just wasn't fun. Coach Dirkholz, I'm out in the desert in the middle of a field somewhere. I don't have any water, and it built my character. I guess that's all I can say. It was a lose-lose. It really was. So there's kind of the backstory, and now you can see that it really is ironic that now, at this point in time in my life, I'm going to enthusiastically label myself as a runner. Well, I love to run. It's part of my self-image. How did that come about? This was in the early 2000s. Apparently, I forgot all about this poor high school experience that I just described to you. Sometime in a moment of insanity, I'm at work and some guy was telling me about running marathons and doing triathlons. I was like, I got this idea in my head. Oh, gotta do that. And so I did. Some people, you get this idea in your head whether it's a good idea or not, you just gotta follow it through. And that's me for good or for bad. So about 2002, I said, I'm gonna run a marathon. So I started with the 10K, I ran a 10K. Then a few months later, I ran a marathon. I ran the LA Marathon. Probably not the best race to start in terms of marathons because there's 25,000 runners. It's chaos. But I actually enjoyed it. It was great. It was all the people surrounding. It was just a real buzz. The energy, the feeling of accomplishment when you cross the finish line. It was a great experience. So after that, I ran on average since then, maybe an average of every 18 months, every 2 years, I run a marathon. And sprinkling a lot of 10Ks there. And even when I'm not getting ready for a race, and Boo will tell you this, when I'm getting ready for a race, I'm absolutely anal retentive. I got this detailed training schedule, just like the engineer that I am. And today, poor Boo, I get out there, what are we going to do? He wants to know, what are we going to do today? We're going to go 9 miles at an 8:45 pace today. That's what the training schedule says. Poor Boo, he's always up there with it. He said, okay, let's go. See how far we can get. So after 10 years or so of doing that, running races, even when I'm not training for marathon, I love to get down to the beach and run. Just start to think of yourself as a runner. That's great. Part of my self-image. And I really thought I was a runner until about 5 years ago. I signed up for a 10K race down in Seal Beach. Seal Beach has, every spring, they have a real nice 10K. And it's has real nice timing because it's usually 3 or 4 weeks after the LA Marathon. By the way, if you want to run a 10K and run it fast and a good time, the best way to do that is to train for and run a marathon first. It sounds excessive, but that's what you do. At least it works for me. And then I wait 3 or 4 weeks, your body gets a good rest, but you're still in good shape. You just ran a marathon. And my race strategy is maybe not all that intelligent, but I said, I'm in good shape. I can run 26.2 miles. This is only 6.2 miles. I'm just going to run all out from the starting line. And that's what I did. And I got good times for you. I'm not really fast if you want to compare overall times. But for me, that's when I ran my fastest times when I had that strategy. So I'm down in Seal Beach, and I'm listening to the race announcer. Every race has a guy in the loudspeaker. And the guy in the loudspeaker is, you kind of learn to almost ignore him because every time they say the same thing. Okay, runners, line up. The race time is 10 minutes from now. Make sure you're in the proper corral, this, that, and the other. And in this particular race, they were starting in waves, and the whole mob started once. So he's talking in the background, half listening. The elite runners go first. That's always true. I'm not an elite runner, so I'm certainly not going to be in wave 1. And he said, now wave 2 is for the rest of you who are also real runners. Then my ears started to perk up because I'm thinking, I'm a real runner. At least that's what I'm thinking. But then he starts to go on and describe what he means by a real runner. Those of you who are real runners, the rest of you can be in wave 2. And those of you who plan to run this race at a 7 minutes per mile pace or better. Right? Now I'm really paying attention because like, this guy's dissing me. Because I can't run that fast. And I thought I was a real runner. What's going on here? What did I do? I ran in wave 2 anyway, just because he told me that I shouldn't. And when you know, I guess I wasn't a real runner that day because, but I got close. I think I ran 7:05 per mile or something like that. Anyway, so I think I've established I like training for marathons. I like running in marathons. I like just to run whether I'm training for a race or not. I love 10Ks. Ran with the kids in the El Segundo Run for Education a couple weeks ago. It's a great event. And even if I'm not a real runner, I'm just a jogger. I enjoy doing it. But that wasn't enough. Here I go again. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy, but now I've run 4 or 5 marathons, and now there's a guy at work who does triathlons. I do a triathlon. Okay. My friend is Carl. This guy's been at the Kona World Championships, and I think I'm going to do what he does. And it's crazy, but I get it in my head, so I'm going to do it. And so I don't know if you know what Ironman is. Ironman is this crazy race. About every October, November, if you're flipping through the channels on a Saturday, and you'll see this triathlon on TV. It's the Kona World Championships. It's the Ironman distance triathlon. It's these crazy people. They swim 2.4 miles. Then they bike 112 miles. And then when they get off the bike, the race is not done. Now they go run a marathon. Okay? It's crazy. But I said, okay. And by the way, these people, if you watch the show, it's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. They profile these everyday normal people that are doing this race. And they're walking disaster areas. They're showing them on the bike and on the run, and they're obviously exhausted. Sometimes they're stumbling. They're not finishing the race until it's very late at night. They spend 17 hours on the course. And you watch, for me anyway, I almost can't take my eyes out of it. So why is this normal person doing this to themselves? So that's what I did. I'm going to do that. So, and by the way, did I mention when I was in high school I hated running? I was on the cross country team. I don't know, there's a disconnect here. That's what I did. I said, I'm going to do this. And no one around me really understood. Certainly my lovely wife did. And she said, I don't understand, Tom. I'm not going to run unless someone or something very scary is chasing me. That's not me. One other thing you should know about me is I just had my 50th birthday less than 2 weeks ago. So birthdays are supposed to be fun, right? Cake and ice cream and all that. But 50 somehow just didn't quite hit me quite right. I was thinking, I don't know. Firmly in middle age now. And the problem with being a runner is when you reach 50 or any milestone like that, you actually have hard evidence. If you're like me and you log everything, engineers got spreadsheets galore. I'm logging all my training runs, I'm logging all my race times, and I'm plotting, I did this race then, and that was my finish time. And I'm plotting, and I'm watching my finish times go up. It's the wrong direction. So then you reach 50, and you can't at least I couldn't shrug it out and say, oh, well, 50's the new 40. Some nonsense like that, because I'm comparing my times from when I was 40 and now when I'm 50. For me, 50 was now the new 40. It just didn't work out that way. So I'm turning 50. But, seriously, when you do turn 50 or 45 or 48, men about my age, we start thinking about life a little bit more seriously anyway. At least I did. I know a lot of people my age do, and you start asking yourself some of the big questions about life, right? Like, why am I here? Does any of this have any meaning? Why am I doing this? What's my place in the universe? I want you to hold that thought and then tell me whether or not these words sound familiar. I'm sure they will. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I almost get a chill down my spine just reading those words. Thomas Jefferson, the Declaration of Independence. And I've heard that so many times that I just almost blop right through it because the words are so familiar. But 50th birthday, I'm thinking about these big questions. And all of a sudden it occurred to me that's a really interesting turn of phrase. Jefferson wrote the pursuit of happiness. He didn't write, life, liberty, and happiness. He wrote the pursuit of happiness. Well, that's interesting. Why not the pursuit of liberty or the pursuit of life? Only the pursuit of happiness. Maybe it was kind of a prose thing. It just sounds alliterative. I don't think so. I thought about it because why do you have to pursue something? Because it's elusive. It's hard to catch. If it's easy to find, you don't have to pursue it. It's right there in front of you. Just pick it up. So maybe Thomas Jefferson was onto something. There's a little wisdom there. Happiness probably is at least